This call is now being recorded.
So good afternoon, everyone. So welcome you all on the expert session of GATE 2022 exam preparation classes of electrical circuit by Dr. Altaf Badar sir. So first of all, I introduce our today's expert, Dr. Altaf Badar sir. He is a assistant professor in Department of Electrical Engineering of National Institute of Technology, Warangal, Telangana. He taught various uh, subjects like network analysis, electromagnetic field control system, and smart grid technologies. Uh, while he is very interested, his interested topic is an expert subject is electrical circuits and electromagnetic theory. So we will choose the electrical circuit for his expert lecture for the gate preparation of our student. So he is also published various journal paper in national and international journal of repute, as well as he is published his paper in conferences. And under his guidance, more than 5 students, 4 to 5 students, PhD are going in his under his guidance, and various MTech as well as BTech students are also guided by him. And he is a BOS member of Electrical Engineering Department of YCC Nagpur, as well as he is many reputed person, means he's a distinguished professor in electrical engineering department, uh, as has career. He is uh, he is a well-known professor in electrical engineering department in Nagpur University as well, and in the NIT Warangal. So, without wasting a time, I hand over this session to Altaf Badar sir. Badar sir.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you very much. First of all, thank you, sir, for calling me for the
Yes, sir.
lecture. I have had a very good rapport with your college continuously, and since sir has given me an introduction, let me tell you all, I have been in Nagpur University for a long time. I had been associated with the Nagpur University for a long time, and in fact, had I been still there, you would have gone through the Viva and all of it through me only somehow.
Yes, sir.
So, anyways, recently I have got a book also through that is on evolutionary optimization algorithms, and 2 chapters in Springer published book. Anyways, before I start, let me just start with a very small thing as to where we are going to go for. Just 1 second, I'll share my screen. So, a very good afternoon to all the students. And because of time crunch, I have got a meeting actually after this, immediately after this. So, we'll have to finish it a little bit before time. Mm, Anyways, we'll finish it up. The basic fundamental is how to study, that is more important. But before we go into that, mm, as I told you, all, I have been associated with Nagpur University for a very long time. I was even a BOS member in Nagpur University, and I am working in NIT Warangal. NIT Warangal is ranked 23 all over the country. It is one of the prestigious institutions in the country. Amongst the NITs, we rank 4, and we have got a student intake of around 6,000. I mean, 6,000 students study in the campus coming from various parts of the country, and as well from the other countries as well. Like we have got students from Nepal, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, Ethiopia, Gulf, and all of it. As far as the department is considered, our department has 33 faculties right now, all PhD, and we have got a lot of projects and research work going on. So if anybody is interested, they can obviously contact me later on whenever required. This is obviously for GATE, but if you need any help, you can contact me later on. Now, let us start. I believe if we have a more of an interactive session, you'll also enjoy it. And then, obviously, not at the later end of the presentation, but at the initial part, we can have some discussion and then we can move ahead with it. So, the topics that I had planned to cover was this much: ideal current and voltage sources, passive filter, resonance, sinusoidal steady state response, and transient response of AC/DC network. I'm not sure as to how much I'll be able to cover, but let's see. The fundamental before we go into this, I believe all of you might be appearing for GATE and all of it. See, if you go through the question papers of GATE, the basic requirement that is there is you need to have your concepts clear. If your concepts are clear, you will be able to solve it. If your concepts are not clear, you will not be able to solve it. That is a very simple fundamental that is required. And to clear your concept, you need not study for days or for more number of hours. I never believe in studying more, but I always say that as to how you study is more important. Rather than how much you study, it is more important how you study. So the fundamental is if you can uh, create a precise notes of what you are studying, number one, and number two, if you can understand the concept, then there is no problem on earth that you cannot solve. At least in GATE, you will be able to easily clear up everything, right? So you need to basically understand what is the difference between two things. Number one, will anyways come to those points later on. But if you all are really serious about your exams, I would suggest, even though this may be quite late, but anyways, what I would suggest is that you create notes of your own rather than going through somebody else's note, and these should be very precise, small. One topic, one page. That's it. And you write down everything that you want to understand or remember, uh, just to clear the concept of that particular part. Then another topic, another page. Like that, if you do it, then it would be easier for you. If you're studying a maybe theorem or something like that, write down the statement of the theorem, what it means. Write it down in your own language also, no issues, because your notes nobody else is going to study, right? So write it down in your own language so that you can understand what you have written and what you are going to uh, get out of that particular topic. Right. So let us start with ideal current and voltage source. Can anybody just tell me what do we mean by a source? Let us go in a reverse way. What do you mean by a source? Okay. By the time you all get ready to answer me, I'll just take up this small topic first, and then we'll move ahead. The usual elements which are present in a circuit are resistors, right? Inductors, capacitors, and then we have got sources. So I have given a small classification, but let me just get back again as to what these elements are. Let us start from the bottom. Can anybody just tell me what is the source? Anything, the answer can be wrong, but what do you think? That is important. Anyone? So many people coming in and out of the meeting. Okay. Anyway, see, this is the first thing that you need to learn. If you're not eager to learn, you will never be able to learn, isn't it? At this age, you should be at the forefront of answering the things, because that will basically help you interact. If you don't start the interaction, then how do you expect the things to go in your way? It will never go. Anyways, so let me myself then cover it up. The first one is the resistor and the number of elements that we have. Chetan sir, have you asked them not to answer?
No, sir.
Ujjwala, you can unmute and tell me the answer. Let us have an interaction. It's not like one way teaching it. It is never a good thing to have. And anyways, you have given me a classification. I'm not asking for a classification. What I'm asking is, what do you mean by a source? There are so many people. who have put in the comments here. Other than that, Achal, Kanchan, Prachi, yeah, anybody, if anybody can just tell me what do you think the source is? Y'all can unmute and tell me, dear.
Achal, please unmute yourself and tell the answer. Achal, Ujwala, please unmute yourself.
Yeah,
Hello, sir.
yeah.
Sir, sources that given to the circuit.
No, you first wrote electricity, something like that.
Yes, sir.
That is connected to the, what did you say?
That is given to the circuit.
That is given to the circuit.
Electricity.
Okay. Anyone else? See, basically the point is you need to answer so that you can, even if it is wrong, I always would prefer that you basically answer something. So that it will be number one, the lecture would be interactive. The second thing, you would also understand what you were thinking. Otherwise, it will just go through your ears. That's it. You will not remember as to what happened. Anyways, so I believe we are in final year and we are unable to define a source as such, except for two people. Nobody even thought of answering. I think so. Anyways, let me go through the elements first. So the elements that we have is usually these are the elements. If we cut off the uh, power electronic elements, then we have these elements with us. The first one is the resistor. Resistor is there to, and its basic characteristic is to, oppose the flow of current. Then the other one is an inductor. How many of y'all exactly understand what an inductor is? Is it a resistor or is it a conductor? Okay, if you all are not comfortable answering through the mic, you can just put it into the chat box at least. We can have some answers from there. Is a resistor is the inductor going to oppose the flow of the current, or is it a conductor only, but having certain properties, or anything else that you may have as an answer? Okay. Anyways, yeah, oppose the change of current. Good. Good. Yes. But is it a conductor or is it a resistor? Does it resist the flow of current, or uh, it allows the current to flow? See, that is why I said that the concepts are more important, right? It resists it. It is actually, you know what? The inductor gives the resistance through something called as reactance. Yeah, good. We have got some different answers from different people now. At least chat box is working, so that's good. See, inductor is basically made out of a conductor, but the resistance that it offers is not called as resistance, but instead it is called as reactance. Am I right? So it reacts to the flow of the current. You can remember it like that. And it does not allow you to change the flow of the current through it. Resistor is a very simple element. It is a linear element and all of it, but inductor is a different kind of an element that we have. Now, in an inductor, usually what happens is this is your inductor, and the current flows through it. Once the current flows through it, then what happens is there is a generation of the field around it because of this particular thing. And this generation of the current, the generation of the field does not allow the current to change. So it is basically reacting to the flow of the current itself. Right? So it will the field will respond to the amount of current flowing through the inductor, and then it will create such a situation where the current will not change. It will not allow the current to change. Similarly, a capacitor works on a different kind of a fundamental. It has got two parallel plates, with one of them having positives, the other one having negatives, and because of this, a field is created. So, in an inductor, you get an electromagnetic field. In a capacitor, you get an electrostatic field, because of which the field is created. Okay. Now, then again, coming back to sources. Sources are those elements, as told by Archer, are those elements which will pump electricity into the network when connected, and that is fine enough. We don't have any issues with that, because that is what the source is going to do. And then these sources are further divided into, like, maybe current source, voltage source, AC source, DC source, something like that. Now, other than these elements, since we are talking about network theory, we have means we have considered only these elements here. But other than these elements, there are other elements also which are non-linear uh, and unilateral, like that. Resistor is a bilateral linear element. Okay. Now, what happens is, excuse me. What happens is that we have got diodes, we have got other things. So, what do we mean by linear and non-linear? Linear means when your input follows the the output follows the input, or is proportional to the uh, input, then we say it is a linear element. If the output does not follow the input, then in that case, you say it is a non-linear element. Now, what do you mean by input? It's not a source. It's the action that we take on an element. I'll come to that later on after this. So that is where basically we go ahead with that. Then we have got unilateral and bilateral elements. Unilateral means which allows the current to flow in a single direction through it. That is called as a unilateral element. Bilateral will have the current flowing through it in both the directions in a similar fashion, with a similar resistance or reactance across it. Okay. Yeah, Ujjwala, you have raised your hand. Wanted to say something? So then let us move to the sources part, and uh, how they are basically divided. Now, can somebody tell me whether this classification is correct or not? Do we have any other classification other than this? No, you cannot say just because I'm presenting it's correct. Okay. So what we have seen, what we can see here is that the sources are basically classified into two parts. One is current, one is voltage. Again, they are further classified into ideal, practical, and we can have classification based on, as in the previous slide I showed.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, sources independent source or dependent source?
Yeah.
आणि इंडिपेंडेंट सोर्स मध्ये व्होल्टेज सोर्स आणि करंट सोर्स. डिपेंडेंट मध्ये व्होल्टेज कंट्रोल व्होल्टेज सोर्स, करंट कंट्रोल व्होल्टेज सोर्स, करंट कंट्रोल करंट सोर्स, व्होल्टेज कंट्रोल करंट सोर्स.
Right, very good. But the thing is, I couldn't accommodate so many classifications here, right, Ujjwala? So I just made it very simple. Yes, there are different kinds of sources, but if you broadly classify it, the sources will be classified into current and voltage only. Do we
Yes.
have do we have a power source?
Mainly, sir, source current or voltage source.
No, mainly means what? What about the other part? Do we have a power source?
Sorry, sir.
Do we have a power source or
Current or
frequency
voltage.
source? Current or voltage is only there. Okay, fine. You can mute yourself. Fine. So the thing is, like, what we have is, this is a very simple classification, specifically as far as our study goes. And as she said, there are so many different kinds of sources which are there, but ultimately they can further be classified into current and voltage only. Either current dependent, voltage independent, voltage dependent, so on and so forth. But what we are interested is right now is ideal and practical. Right? Now, what is the difference between an ideal source and a practical source? But again, before that, I'll just go into a little bit of a difference. A source is basically an active element, right? So this is where we need to understand what do you mean by an active element. An active element is some element which will impose conditions on the circuit. Like in a class also, we'll have some active students, some, and the other part of it would be passive. The opposite of it would be passive, not inactive. In electrical, it will be passive on the other side, not inactive, right? So when we talk of active elements are those elements which will impose conditions in the circuit. Passive elements are those elements which will react to a situation, right? So like even in a class we have, in a similar way, there would be some students who would not only actively participate, but they will also go ahead and generate some events or uh, think of some newer things to be done during the year, and they would actively participate in its implementation as well. So it basically induces action in the network. Whereas on the passive elements, what happens is it only responds to a particular imposition by the active element. So if there is a resistor, the resistor itself will not do anything. It's not possible. What will exactly happen is that the resistor will respond to whatever current or voltage comes across it. That's it. Other than that, it is not going to do anything. And that too is defined beforehand itself. And this is a normal representation of the sources. The voltage sources are represented like this. Current sources are represented on the right hand side. You need to be very much careful as to how the polarities are given and the direction is given. Now, let me come to a point. Yeah, everybody are in final year, I assume. So, can somebody just tell me what sources are there when I'm talking about the voltage source? Is it a DC source in the slide or is it a AC source? The slide which is visible to you, is it an AC source or is it a DC source? Anybody?
DC source, sir.
Right. It's a DC source. And how do you say it's a DC source? Anybody who would say it's an AC source? Anybody? So it was tough to get answer for DC itself. So AC nobody would support, right? How can you say it's a DC source, Devendra?
Sir, because there is battery symbol and for
No.
AC source
Wait,
and
wait, wait, wait,
Hello,
wait,
sir. Sir,
wait,
DC source, DC current source,
wait,
DC
wait.
voltage source.
Ujjwal, wait. Let Devendra answer. Yeah, Devendra, there are two symbols. So can you please tell me which one you are talking about?
voltage source.
No, no. Voltage source also has got two representations there. One is circle, one is
Sir, both DC
both are
source.
DC. Why?
Uh, right hand side is because there is battery symbol. That's why. means
Right.
plus
Okay.
minus. That's why.
Right.
And left hand side there is no sine wave. So if there is AC signal,
Okay.
we
So
have to do
okay.
sine.
Okay. Devendra, hold on. Okay. Uh, Now I have put an AC signal. Now is it an AC source? The polarity also still remains.
Yes, sir. Now you can say this is AC voltage
AC
source.
source. AC voltage source.
Yeah, left
Sure.
hand side.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
But the polarity is given there. What about the polarity? Should I not rub it off?
No, sir. For circuit, there is polarity still exists. I think.
I think.
I mean, if we are solving circuit um, example, I mean numericals and all.
Okay. Anyone else? Nice. So that was a good thing. Yes. AC should also have a polarity based on that. Uh, and this is an AC source. Now, once we have given an AC symbol to that. Good. Then this is the characteristics of an ideal and a practical source. This is for the current source, how it behaves, and this is for a voltage source. On the x-axis, we can have the time or I based on that. Now, what do these graphs basically represent? When we say it's a characteristic of a current source, an ideal, no matter what voltage you derive from it, or no matter how much time goes by, the output of an ideal current source will remain the same. Whereas with time or increase in voltage, the current will go down in a practical source. Right? The same thing will happen with the voltage source also. In this, we have got voltage on the y-axis, and it will remain constant no matter how much time we spent on it, or no matter how much of the current increases on the load side. For an ideal source, the uh, what we say, the output will remain the same. Whereas for a practical one, what happens is this basically starts to go down, and uh, you'll be able to see that this has this will also be visible in our houses as well, in which what happens is as the load increases, the voltage fluctuates and then goes down. This at least used to happen earlier. Right? It now that our power systems have improved in their performance, the voltage fluctuation is quite less nowadays. Right. So what I did was that after going through this, to understand and to remember, I would always suggest that whenever you have got time, you just try out some things which are told to you but not proved to you. So you go out and prove it otherwise if possible. So let us just take an example and see how an ideal and a practical source varies and how it exactly works out. So what I did was I took a circuit like this and I did simple calculation, that is current division rule. I applied it and this is how I got the results. Let us see how this can be explained. The current source is I, it is constant, right? Now, before we study this thing, let us understand that a current source can be represented through a resistance in parallel to it. Okay, so this is a current source that we have, and it is a practical current source. I've written the heading as practical current source. The output of I is the current source is 100 amperes. Okay, the value of R, it's a practical one. We have taken it as 1. You can change it. You can have whatever you want. In an ideal current source, usually the parallel resistance will have a very high value. But I have taken a lesser value to understand the effect of the load on a practical current source. right? Because ideally the value of R across the current source will be very high. So it will perform in a different way. I'll show you that also. But let us take a practical current source. So what I did was I took R as 1 only. You can change the value and you can see how it changes basically. So based on this, I tried to find the current through it. And what I did was I took another resistance which is given here by RL. Actually it is L, but that L has gone into the line. So I took another resistance RL, and this RL I varied from 2 to 0. 2 is double the value of 1 and 0 has made it completely gone down to 0. Let us see if these two resistance are in parallel. That means this RL would be connected here between A and B. So if I go through it, what I see is that IR slowly reduces as the value of the load also reduces. The resistance of the load also reduces. That means the current through this thing slowly reduces, it changes. But the output current also changes if you just have a look here, right? So I'm more concerned about this thing. Had it been a practical, had it been an ideal current source, the value of IAB should have been constant throughout. But here what I can see is it is increasing up to 100 as I reduce the value of the load. And similarly, I can see that the voltage also varies accordingly. Anyways, I'm not interested in the voltage right now. I'm interested in the current only. Output current is given like this. So this is how basically see how the uh, line has come down. As the voltage changes, so does the line. This is what we saw in the graph also. If you just see here, see this is the same line that we saw here. This is what we get as an output here, right? Then let us go to ideal current source. In an ideal current source, what I did was I took this. That is why I put it as red. The value of the resistance which was in parallel to the current source, I have taken it to a very high value, and because of this, if you see the current through that resistance is very less. 10 to the power minus 13 is approximately negligibly 0. And now no matter what I change the value of RL, the output current remains the same. So this is how you can see, this is not a very big topic or something like that. What I wanted to show was that you can take up some small topics, do your own calculations, check it out, so that what happens is whenever that topic comes up again, you always remember that this is how it is supposed to be, right? So from this, what I can take it home as is that the resistance in parallel of the current source should be very high, ideally. Now I can always remember this thing, that I have done the calculation with my own hands. Similarly, if I go for a practical voltage source, if you see here, again, I have taken in a practical voltage source, what we do is we show the resistance in series, right? So again, I have taken the resistance as 1 here. I have changed the value of RL here from 2 to 0, same part. And let aside all the other things, I'm not interested in that. I wanted to see VAB. So VAB again changes. If you just have a look here, VAB again changes. So this is what I don't want. Again, a similar kind of a figure is visible as we saw in the previous one. And if I go by taking R as 0, that is in a ideal voltage source, what we have is usually that the resistance in series is always 0. So if I go by R is equals to 0, the voltage on the output will always remain as 100. So this is basically how we can go for. In the last one, we have got a hash because the internal resistance is also 0 and the load is also 0. So this will basically burn down the circuit. So that's why I put a hash there, right? So any questions still here? Okay. Let us move to the next topic, that is passive filter. Now, Again, as I said, there are active and passive elements. When we say passive, that means it reacts to a situation. It will not proactively do anything. Okay, so it basically does not do anything on its own, and it will react to the situations that it passes through. So when we say filter, let us remember what exactly it means. There might be some students also who might not be very good at studies. How do we understand what is a filter? How do we remember what is a filter? So filter is something that is used to stop unwanted elements, right? Like we have a filter at our house also for water. So a water filter is supposed to stop the impurities the that the water contains, and it is supposed to not allow these impurities to pass through. Okay, so you can remember it from there. Now that same filter is applied into electrical system, and in electrical system what happens is, what do we not want to pass is the specific signals. Now uh, again, see, just becoming an electrical engineer will not help you out. You need to have that fire burning in your belly to look out for the applications and understand how it works, how these things are basically placed in the system and all of it. Now exactly what happens is, when we talk of a filter is supposed to stop specific signals only that I don't want to do. Can somebody just give me an example as to where these are practically applied now? Why do we have it as a practical application in our day-to-day life? Is anybody? Oh, see, y'all have studied filters, but if you don't know the application of filters, then how do you think you will fare on the ground? Anyways, so basically, let me give you an
Hello,
example.
sir.
Yeah, yeah.
Capacitor filter.
No, no, no. I want an application. I'm not asking for classification. Where is it applied? Around me, where can I see filters working? What are the places where I can see filters working?
Sorry, sir.
Yeah. I'm not sorry, dear. It's okay. You tried at least, isn't it?
No idea, sir.
Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah, Weber, please.
सर जो इलेक्ट्रिकल सिग्नल्स रहते हैं अनवांटेड
Yeah.
उनको फिल्टर करने का काम करते हैं.
Agreed, dear, but where? I want an application. मुझे कहाँ दिखाई देता है वो? That is the point. कहाँ दिखेगा ये? Ajay Bagele says its charger is there. Achal Sonamne says receivers. I don't know where are the receivers. Charger I can see, but can you just explain, Ajay, what kind of a charger and where filter is there? Where is the filter there, dear?
Sir, in
सर वो
fridges,
AC to DC में convert
Yeah, yes, yes. 8C to DC. Right.
AC to DC में convert करके हम pure use.
Okay, fine, fine. So you need a filter basically there, right? But we cannot see it there again. Okay. Achal, can you just tell me television receivers means? I don't understand still. Ajay, actually, that was not the kind of filter that we are going to talk right now. But anyways, that is also okay. That we need filters there. See, I don't know how many of you all would be appearing for campus and going for the job or whatever it is, but remember one thing: the answer should be to the point. What am I asking, and what are you all answering? Isn't it? Like Achal has said, receivers. I'm not trying to bring down anybody, but just how do I understand what is a receiver? Just imagine you're sitting in a campus. I asked, give me an application of filters. You can say I don't know, but if you say receivers, then how do I understand what is a receiver? I don't understand that thing. Weber has said digital circuits. Obviously, filters would be applied in digital circuits, but I'm saying application. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Uh, I'll ask you something. Suppose if I get a phone call and somebody else in the room also has a mobile, can that person listen to the phone call that I am having, the talk, the conversation that I am having? No, right? One thing. So obviously, my mobile is receiving and sending some signals whenever I'm talking. Anyways, let that other person be there, whether he or she does want to listen or not. But my mobile is, sending and receiving certain signals. I believe everybody understands this thing at least. Now, as Achal has given an example, let me carry it forward. Maybe she just wrote two words. So I'll take that example and move ahead. Can I use the same mobile to run my TV? Because it is receiving and sending signals, right? So can I use mobile except and otherwise provided for a normal mobile that I have and some other thing? Can I use the mobile for controlling my TV? Is it a possibility? Yes or no? Oh, oh. See, except for some companies which provide for an IR filter or an IR part, you cannot use the mobile to control the TV. Am I right? That means that the TV runs on particular signals only. It does not run on any signal. You cannot just send any signal and run the TV. Am I audible or not?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yeah, yeah. So, similarly, the case is for AC. Now, leave aside the mobile. I have got a remote for TV and I have got a remote for an AC. Can I interchange them and use them? Can I use the remote of the AC to run the TV? Or can I use the TV's mobile to run the AC? Not possible. Because they are fine tuned to specific signals. They are fine tuned to specific signals only, sending and receiving of specific signals. And this is done through filters. This is achieved through filters. So basically, what we want is even see if you all go for MTech or something like that later on. I believe you'll be going for some higher level of subjects also in electrical engineering, in which you will find that not only sending of electricity is very important, but communication is also very important. I hope you all have studied, you all have heard of smart grids at least. And smart grid to be implemented in reality, the first requirement, according to me, is a very good communication system. And when you talk of a communication system, the requirement of filters is there at the highest level. You need filters because these filters will help you coordinate, will help you communicate, and will help you fine tune the message that you're going to send in the communication pattern, right? So the fundamental is that excuse me, the fundamental is that we have filters all over us, around us. In fact, you can even uh, if your AC supports, you can use Wi-Fi for AC, you can use Wi-Fi for your TV, you can use Wi-Fi for your mobile also. That means they are fine-tuned to use that signal as well. Am I right? So the thing is, in some places these are common. In some places, these same equipments do not work with each other in tandem. Anyways, the fundamental is that in all these places we need filters, and these are specific filters which will control the frequency of the output. So what I think so Ajay gave as the first example was for the chargers. That is good enough, but that is at the lowest level, because I know that this is obviously there. And the example that he gave requires a passive filter only, that we are going to see. The classification is usually based on frequency. What kind of a frequency will the particular filter allow or stop? Okay. What kind of a frequency a particular filter will allow or stop? So this is the primary classification. There are other classifications also. I believe you might have gone through it. But just for the revision part, we have got a low pass filter. In low pass filter, the frequencies at the lower end are allowed to pass. The signals having frequencies at the lower end will be allowed to pass, and the higher end frequencies will be stopped. Whereas on the other side, the high pass filter allows higher frequency signals to pass, and it stops the lower frequency signals to pass through it. A band pass filter will allow a specific band of frequencies to pass through it, and uh, lesser than that and greater than that range will not be allowed. A band stop filter is opposite to the band pass filter. I hope you all have studied it. I'll show you through the figures also, so you just recollect all those things. So band stop filter is also called as a band reject filter. It is also called as a notch filter, right? So these things are also important when you're preparing for gate. Somewhere they ask you a problem related to notch filter, and you don't know what is a notch filter, even though you know what is a band stop filter, but you don't know what is a notch filter. They both being same, you may not be able to solve the numerical. So these things are also very much important. You should remember, and as I said, when you're making notes, these things should be clearly mentioned, that this particular term is also called this and that, so on and so forth. Now, what Ajay gave me as an example was for the charger. Obviously, the kind of filter that I would require there would be a low pass filter. Frequencies lesser than maybe 100, I'll allow them to pass through. That means I'll have only the power frequency passing through it. So they have got their own applications, high pass filters, and all of it are there. I had previously worked on a topic where high pass filters can be utilized in a very efficient way to detect the fault, specifically in transient conditions. So that is where we can utilize it. Then I'll just give you an example as to how it works. Suppose this is the original signal that I have, okay? And now what happens is we use certain techniques to find out the components which make up this particular signal. If there is anything that you don't understand, please you can stop me in between itself, because I am unable to see the window, the Google Meet window. So if you have any questions, you can just stop and I'll be very happy to answer your questions. So what we have is, this is the original signal, and then we basically classify it into different signals. Can anybody tell me what methods are used for this particular thing? How do we know the component frequencies from the original signal? If you don't know, just type it in the chat box as no. At least no can be typed, right? Now, some of you all have already had some conversation with me, so you can directly say yes or no. No. Kushal, you have written Kushal mathematics and still you are saying no. Huh? This is a joke. Neelam says no. Okay, anybody else? Does that mean that the remaining 20 people know? Okay, there are other no's also. So I assume others also do not know it. One of the methods that we basically use is the FFT, that is Fourier transform. And see, basically, you need to understand one very simple thing, that you cannot be masters in network or whatever topic I am teaching today in 1.5 hours. The basic fundamental of interaction with y'all is to, give you a direction as to how you need to work it out. Ultimately, you have to work it out. And the thing is that for this, there's another suggestion now. You should always keep on studying some or the other thing, whether you like it or not. But people without knowledge will ultimately not be able to utilize their degrees and all of it. You may have a degree, but without knowledge, how will you be able to crack an interview and get into a company? You need to think over that thing. So knowledge is a very important part, specifically if you are going for a job. If you already have a business, still you should have knowledge about these things, because technology is the engine that will drive you to success. You can see the companies which are there, and which companies earn more, which companies will earn less. The technology companies will always be earning more. The companies which use newer and newer technologies will always earn more. If you want to be a part of those companies, you will have to study more and more, get more and more knowledge. Am I right? If we just see, there were taxi companies all over the place, but who is now earning more? Ola, Uber, they are earning more than any other taxi companies because they use the technology. Similarly, Amazon used the technology to its benefit. It's one of the biggest online stores available, isn't it? So the thing is, the companies, Infosys, you can take it, TCS, you can take it, you can take example of L&T Infotech, and so many other companies are there, Capgemini, so on and so forth. These are all companies which work on technology. Non-technical companies, you tell me any one which will survive basically. Even if you go to tourism, those companies which were able to use the technologies always went ahead. So, anyways, I'm not pushing you that you don't know anything or something like that. But my point is that you should be studying different topics, at least the applications, right? So, I believe that today when you all go home, or if you all are already at home, whenever this lecture ends, you would go through something called as wave this FFT and understand how it works. It will hardly take 15 to 20 minutes for you to understand it, but you will have one more arrow in your archery, isn't it? You will have knowledge about one more thing. So, anyways, now what has happened is, this is a signal which is there. The signal is not a sine wave. I want the signals in sine wave. So what I'll do is I want to convert it into the components. The components will be 50 hertz according to the power frequencies that we talk about. It would be 50 hertz, 100 hertz, 150 hertz, 200, 250, so on and so forth, in multiples of 50. So there would be a basic component which is there, and then there would be multiples of that component. FFT, that is the Fourier transform, is used to find out the components as to which frequency components are present in the signal, whether it is 50 hertz, whether it is 100 hertz, whether it is 150 hertz, and what is the contribution as well. Now, there are, you might have heard of harmonics also. Usually, there are third, fifth, seventh harmonics. The odd harmonics are more dangerous rather than even. So, you may not get, much of a signal in 100 hertz, 200 hertz, 300 hertz, but for a power frequency, you'll get more signals into 150, 250, 350, so on and so forth. That is multiples in odd. 50 into 3, 150. 50 into 5, 250. 50 into 7, 350. So on and so forth, you'll get it. So what we have done is, we have now, by making use of FFT, or even you can make use of wavelet. This is also very good technology. So we can make use of wavelet, and we have divided the signals into different components. And after dividing those signals into components, now I want my filters to work it out. So if I have got a low pass filter, if you just see here, if I've got a low pass filter, and if the original signal is given in the input, in the output I'll get the signal with lower frequency. This is a higher frequency. This is further higher frequency. So I'll get the component of a lower frequency. Here also we can see how frequency has changed. The passing is allowed for lower level, not for the higher level. Then similarly, if I go for high pass filter, it will allow this lowermost, that the signal with higher frequency to pass through it. Input, I am giving the original signal only. This signal I am giving as input, the output comes out as higher frequency signal. That means that this signal is cancelled off, this signal is cancelled off. It is stopped. The components of these frequencies, the lower frequencies, will face higher level of resistance because of that filter, and it will allow only the higher frequencies to pass through it. The again the figure, the it is represented to the graph here. Okay. Now you have got another one called as band pass filter. This band pass filter has got a characteristic like this, and it will allow certain frequencies in a given range only to pass, or the signals with certain frequency range only to pass. Usually, this kind of a filter is used in uh, mobiles and all of it. Okay, so it will allow this thing to pass through it only. And if there is a band reject filter, which we also said is a notch filter, then it will behave like this. So lower frequency signals will be allowed, higher frequency signals will be allowed to pass through it. But the medium frequencies will not be allowed to pass. Right? If there are any questions, I'll again ask you all to please ask me in between itself. Do not wait for me to allow you to ask questions. As I said, we already have very less time, so then the filters are on a very smaller level is divided into passive and active filters. Why I am saying is this is only one classification which is available. There are other classifications also which is there. So passive filters will have components like R, L, and C. Now this is reverse also is applicable. If you are seeing a filter in a numerical in the exam, and you see only R, L, and C, that means it is a passive filter. It is not an active filter. Whereas in an active filter, we'll be using other components like op amp, and other than RLC, we'll be using op amp, and many other devices can also be used. Okay. Then this is what I was telling you all earlier. See, if you are writing down about filters in one page, terminology, or anyways, any other topic also, not only about network theory or something else, any other topic you take up, there should be some terminology related to it. So write it down as well in the notes. Now, in this, when we talk of filters, F1 and F2 will represent the upper and the lower cutoff frequencies. What we mean by this is, see, there are four kinds of filters which are there. The first one, which is a low pass filter, it appears something like this. Second one is a high pass filter, which appears something like this. Then there is a band pass filter, which appears something like this. And then there is a band reject filter, which appears something like this. So in this, the first one, 0 represents F1, that is the lower cutoff frequency. But since we know that it will not go further, we do not talk about the lower cutoff frequency for the low pass filter. The other one would be this frequency above which it will not allow the signals to pass through. So this is called as the cutoff frequency. It can also be called as upper cutoff frequency. Similarly, here F1 will come up somewhere here, and F2 is not required because it goes to infinity. Here what happens is we take up certain frequencies. It's not exactly here, but we take it somewhere here and here. And this point is called as F1 and this point is called as F2. So this is the lower cutoff and the upper cutoff frequency, and that same thing will be applied to the band reject filter also. Now, usually whenever we go for the further discussions, we'll see that this is mainly for the band pass filter only. like F0 is the center or the resonance frequency. So F0 would be usually represented here. This is the F0. That is the center or resonance frequency. So if possible, we'll see resonance also today, if time permits. And then there is called as band pass band, sorry. These are the band of frequencies for input that will pass through the filter without attenuation. Attenuation means a reduction in the amplitude of the output signal as compared to the input signal. So for a certain band of frequencies, it will allow the input signal to pass through, and in the output we will get the signal without any kind of an attenuation. Stop band is this the opposite of the pass band. The frequencies which are not allowed to pass through the filter are called as stop band. Bandwidth is usually given by f2 minus f1. Okay. This is an example of low pass filter, how it looks and what are the frequencies that we allow. A stands for amplitude, omega is basically a representation for the frequency. So if I have got a signal with a lower frequency, it will allow it to pass through. But if you have got a higher frequency, if you have got signals in this range, it will not allow you to pass through it. Okay. Then the reverse of this is high pass filter. Here you have got an omega c which needs to be specified, which is usually the cutoff frequency again. Then this is a band pass filter. We had seen another representation of band pass filter in the previous slides. And then you've got a band reject filter. So it is represented like this. Then for a low pass filter, basically if you see here, both of them are low pass filters itself. One is with an RC combination, the other one is with an LR combination. So in this, how do we allow the lower frequencies to pass through is that the capacitor will act like open circuit for the lower frequency. For the frequencies with lesser values, the value of XC will be very high, and that is why this particular thing will act like an open circuit. So lower frequencies will easily pass through because they are not allowed to go in the shunt path. They are not allowed to go here for the lower frequency. But when we talk of higher frequencies, this particular thing becomes a short circuit. So the signal will actually go down rather than going straight. It will not go like this. It will go downwards. And on the output side, therefore, I do not get higher frequency outputs. Then on the similar way, if I've got an RL filter, LR filter, the inductor acts like short circuit for lower frequencies, and therefore the lower frequencies will pass through the filter without any problem. Whereas for higher frequencies, the L acts like an open circuit. R will obviously have a very high value so that the signals do not pass through it. Combined with L, it will further create opposition to the flow of current to the higher frequencies. So the same thing can be applied for higher pass filters and all of it. Now, as far as this topic actually is not a part of the technical part, but just to put it up, as I said, I have already mentioned this thing. First, understand the basic concept of what you are studying. Second, we collect the classifications which are there, as we saw. What kind of filters are present? Then you need to have all the formulas also with it. Classification should be there along with terminology also. What kind of terminology? And collect the formula with units, and this is very important. If you do not put units into it, you may write as many times the same formula as you want, but what will happen is you will ultimately forget the units and you may not be able to recollect the things at the time when it is required. So what you do is you collect the formulae, but along with it you also put the units in it. And like we have got some equation. Let us say like if we have ax plus B and this is equal to Y, suppose, then you should know what is Y, what is its unit. You should know what is X, what is its unit, what is A and B also, and what are their values as well as units. Then you can say that I know what is Y is equals to X plus B. Okay. Then you need to understand what term stands for what. This is also very important. And then you need to know what are the boundary conditions. What we mean by boundary conditions is that there are some specific conditions, like when I say open circuit, what you mean by open circuit is the value of resistance is infinity. When I say short circuit, then the value of resistance is zero. So when I can understand by just saying something, I can understand a particular condition, I'll say it's a boundary condition. What will happen if we take a boundary condition on a particular theorem or a particular circuit, how it works then? So that should also be noted down very clearly. Then we go to resonance. Resonance and filters are quite related to each other, right? And resonance is when the uh, output is basically maximum, we say it's resonance. But this happens when the inductive reactance and the capacitive reactance in a circuit are equal to each other. Such situation is then called as resonance. We have got certain figures also and some graph also, so I'll show it to you through that. So the frequency at which the resonance happens is called as resonant frequency. I'll just go back some slides here, and if you see here, this is what we said, resonant frequency. So that is the frequency where you get minimum opposition as when we studying filter. And when we are seeing resonance, it means that the total inductive reactance is equal to the capacitive reactance, which will actually cancel off each other, and we'll have only resistance in the system. Then, in such a case, the situation, in such a situation, we say that the circuit is in resonance. The frequency at which this resonance occurs is called as resonant frequency, and this needs to be studied for filters also. So you can relate filters with the resonance part as well. This is for series circuit resonance. R, L, and C are in series. If you can see here, these are in series, and this is the phasor representation. I'll again just take a simple small half a minute break from here and tell you that see, phasors are really very important for basic electrical understanding. If you are unable to understand what a phasor is, then it will be very tough for you to go for AC numericals, for numericals related to filters and signals and all of it. So please study the vectors very well so that it is easy for you to understand the thing. There are many things in this slide. The first one is phasor, in which we have taken I on the reference axis. Obviously, the V, that is E, that is the voltage across the resistance, will be also in the same line. VL would be leading it by 90 degrees, VC would be lagging it by 90 degrees. If VL and VC are same, then we have got only VR present in the circuit. And in this case, what can be seen here is that we have got a circuit in which we can see that the current goes to a maximum here, IM, when the omega 0 is reached. Omega is given by 2 pi f, so it is nothing but the frequency reaches the resonant frequency. And at Im by root 2, the frequencies which are there, we say that they are the cutoff frequencies. Then in this also, resonance also, if it is applied to filters, then there are, different kinds of filters based on the bandwidth that they have. Selective filters, non-selective filters, and all of it. There are so many variations again there. We will not go into detail of that part. The difference between omega 1, that is the lower cutoff frequency, and the upper cutoff frequency is called as the bandwidth. And on the bottom side of the graph, what we can see is the how XL will change, how R will change, how XC will change, and finally how Z will change. So the one which is here, this line is for Z. Z goes down because XC is increasing, XL is also increasing. However, XC was quite high in the beginning, so it starts going down, down, down up to omega 0, and then starts to increase to a certain level. At omega 0, the value of XL will be equal to XC, and the impedance will be equal to only resistance part. This is for a parallel circuit again, but if you can just see here, instead of I, we have got a V, that is voltage, on the y-axis. Other things are quite similar. The only part is, except for for the graph also, for the phasor also, what we can see here is that I is replaced by V and V is replaced by I. Instead of VC and VL, we are seeing IC and IL here. So resonance occurs when the reactances on the inducting side and the capacitance sides are same. If we further solve it, this is how we get it. So the resonant frequency is given by 1 by 2 pi under root of LC. This is what you need to remember whenever you are solving the resonant frequency problem or resonance problem. This is a very important what we say formula which is there, and the most important thing is that XL should be equal to XC. So this is just an example, again a derivation kind of a thing. This what I did was I took one problem which is available on MathWorks. I don't know whether you all have heard. You might have worked on MATLAB or at least heard about it. If you all are in final year, you might have been working on MATLAB as well. So I took this particular, went to this particular website, took a particular program, and I ran it for different values. And this was a very good, exercise for me to understand how this thing is working. If you see, there is XL here. This is XL basically on the x-axis. How it varies with frequency, how XC varies with frequency, and how then total Z varies with frequency, and with the change in Z, how current varies. So if you can see here at 40, Z has gone down to the minimum value of 1, and that is why my current goes up to the maximum value at 40. So this was an experiment that I just took up for fun, and I thought it would be good to share it with you. Problems I don't think we'll be able to cover off, so we'll just leave it off right now. Then sinusoidal state response, steady state response. Again here, as I said, phases are really very important. 0, 90, 180, 270, you should be able to understand what stands where VR will come up, where VC comes up, and when VL will come up. How phasor addition happens, again, this is again a really very important part, because if it may appear to be very simple, but phasor addition, subtraction, all of it is very important. You should understand when to represent a particular value in polar form and when to represent it in a rectangular form. Then how addition and multiplication happens for vector and all of it. For AC quantities, usually the representation is V is equals to Vm into sine omega t plus alpha, and Vrms is equals to V phase divided by root 2. Okay. So these are very simple formulas that you need to remember. Again, I won't go into the numericals. And steady state response does not have sinusoidal steady state response. If you go through the numericals, these are the only formulae which are usually used. Only thing is you should be able to understand where to apply what. The problems I don't think. Then transient analysis. So transient, it basically happens when there is a sudden change in the circuit, right? There are three kinds of stability which are there. You might have studied it in power systems. In the normal execution, we have got steady state stability. Then there is a dynamic stability which actually takes care of continuous changes that happen in the power system and even in the network. And then there is a transient analysis. Transient analysis basically stands for sudden changes in the circuit, which is not expected. Now, this transient analysis, we actually start the analysis with the normal network components, and then we can further take it to a level for power system and understand how it works there. So again, this topic is really very important for you as far as gate is considered, because not only does it help you in the network analysis, but it also helps you into uh, power systems also, right? So anyways, let us just move ahead. What transient analysis stands for? So it is an immediate changes in circuit, and these changes are sudden and large, because changes are also there in dynamic, but in transient it is sudden and large. However, in network analysis we don't say it is large. So which components basically make a difference here? One is L, one is C. R is a really passive element. It does not make any difference. Whatever the change in the output, whatever the change in the input would be the change in the output. Similar to that. But when L and C comes up, their behavior changes a little bit in these conditions, and uh, the output is affected due to that. Now, if you again, what my observation is, I don't know how many of you all are very comfortable with numericals, but when I was studying BTech, I was really very afraid of numericals. But then once I was studying machines, actually I was giving exams of machines too, and in that, what I observed was that if the concepts are clear and if you know the formulae and all of it, then you can go ahead and solve the numericals, even those numericals which you haven't solved earlier. So I solved some of the numericals which I had not solved during the final exam itself, and fortunately I got very good marks. Or we could say that I was able to solve it. So the thing is that you need to, keep faith in yourself. Number one. Number two, the concepts should be clear. And even though then after that, if you are a little bit afraid, you can still go ahead and solve the numericals. Only first time you need to take a splash in water. Once that is done, then swimming is very easy. So these are the elements which are usually considered in the circuit. R is static, L and C are dynamic, and they change according to the changes in the circuit. So switching is usually used in transient analysis to show the change in the circuit configuration, and based on that we do the analysis there. Then this is again a very important part. See, as I said, this is a boundary condition. You remember, if you some slides back, I said we have got a boundary condition which we should always remember. So this is a boundary condition for transient analysis. That transient analysis cannot be applied to a purely resistive circuit, because transient analysis is done to understand the variation in the circuit parameters or the circuit configuration because of the changes in the element behavior. And element behavior changes only for L and C. They are dynamic. R is static. It does not change. If R is not changing, then whatever the change in the input would be reflected on the output as well. We need not do all the analysis part. One more thing you remember is that you need to go through Laplace transform for actually executing the transient analysis. And then in transient analysis, this is also very important part, that is the offset value. Offset value is the value from where you start your numerical. What is the initial value? Offset is also called as initial, you can say. So what is the condition? We can say that the battery or the capacitor has got a charge of 50 coulombs in the beginning, even before the switch is shifted. So that is called as offset value. This is also going to affect the working of the circuit. and your answers would be affected because of this offset value as well. And then the time constant as well. Time constant is also important in cases where you have got a rising and falling curves. The time constant is also going to play a part. I'll show you the variation of time constant, how it makes a difference. So this is how basically it works. R usually works like a resistance only throughout. So there are, actually 4 to 5 conditions which are there. One is when t is at infinity, minus infinity. This is the starting position. When the circuit came into existence, we can say, or when our study or our analysis came into existence. Then comes up t is equals to 0 minus, when the change was about to occur. Huh? And then comes up t is equals to 0 plus, when the change has just occurred. At 0, the change will occur. So 0 minus just before the change has occurred. 0 plus just after the change has occurred. And then at t is equals to infinity, when the change has occurred and the system has reached a steady state. So basically 0 minus and infinity plus will represent the same state. 0 infinity minus and 0 plus are similar, but infinity minus is usually not asked for, so you can just skip it off. So just before the change happens, L is in a steady state, and when it is in a steady state, as Achal just said, it will not allow the current to change, right? So if it does not allow the current to change, it also acts along with it as a short circuit. Whenever we change the circuit, immediately the inductor starts acting like an open circuit, or it will act like a current source with whose amplitude is similar to the current which was flowing just before the switch was changed, right? So it opposes the change in current. So this is how does it oppose? By open circuiting itself. And then capacitor, usually if it is fully charged, then no current will pass through it. So in a steady state condition, it becomes an open circuit. If it is an open circuit in a steady state condition, then just after the change, it will behave like a short circuit. Okay. And if it already had some charge across it, then it will act like a source with that value. So this is an inductor. It is how it is represented. The current goes, it is usually an open circuit initially, and then over a period of time, it behaves like a short circuit once it has reached a steady state. If it has a current flowing through it, then it will be represented with that current source once there are any changes in the system. This is how I made a discharge equation, and I just checked it out. So this is the standard discharge equation for the inductor, and we have got tau here as the time constant. So if the time constant is changed, see how the discharging happens, how the discharging changes suddenly. The t is here, that is the time is here, this is in seconds basically. The amplitude suddenly drops if the value of tau is less, and it drops very slowly if the value of tau is more. So this is a standard discharging equation for inductor and all of it. Similarly, this is a charging equation. So there is a difference. This is direct E, this is 1 minus E. And again, I just checked how tau will make a difference. Right? So these are the charging of inductor equation, discharging of inductor, charging of capacitor, discharging of capacitor for voltage. The source signals are there. Different kinds of source signals are used in transient analysis. We have got unit source, we have got impulse, many other are there like ramp and all of it. So you need to also understand how the signals are represented for unit, how the signals are represented for impulse, and so on and so forth. The representation is also should be understood in Laplace, otherwise also in a T domain also how it is represented. And what are the characteristics of these signals? These are also very important. Unit is different, impulse is different, and ramp is different, so the characteristics will also be differing each other. Then how the derivatives also work, because the rate of change is important. Problems again we won't be able to do. I'll have to stop here because of my meeting impending part. Still, I can give you 3 to 4 minutes if somebody has got any questions. And if not, then I would thank Chetan sir again, and Saha sir. Sir, please give my greetings from my side to
Yes,
Saha
sir,
sir.
definitely, sir. So, thank you all, thank you, sir, for
Yeah.
giving knowledge to our students. And I think it is helpful for the student for the gate point of view. So, thank you very much, sir, and thank you for accepting our invitation in a short period of time.
That was also one issue.
Yes,
I didn't have time, and anyways, since I have been associated with your college, it was necessary to honor the invitation.
yes, sir, yes, sir.
Thank you, and thanks to all students also
Thank you,
for
sir.
patiently bearing with me, I would say.
Yeah. Yes. So, thank you, sir.
Thank you also, sir. Can I leave
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
if there are no questions then?
Okay, sir. If any question, ask the question. Otherwise, sir will left.
Other than that, also, if you need any help from my side, you can contact me through Chetan sir or Saha sir. No issues with that.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
किती 1 घंटा घेते दोन
Hmm?
किती 2 घंटे का 1
So, all students, please left the class, and then I will take the attendance and send the attendance link in your. Okay.